Dames en heren, goedemiddag.
Hoi hoi, hello and welcome to the Meet Maastricht podcast. I'm Katrina and together with our resident local Lucy, we will be exploring some of the amazing stories that make Maastricht so special. So sit back, relax and join us as we learn about our favourite Dutch city. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 36 of the Meet Maastricht podcast. I'm Katrina here with Lucy as always, and we have a very special guest today, someone new to the podcast. Floor, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. My name is Floor van Spaendonck. I'm director of Bureau Europa, which is the platform for architecture and design in Maastricht. We are based at the Bazin near Lumière Cinema at the Sphinx Quarters. And Bureau Europa is focusing on architecture by organizing exhibitions, excursions, readings and debates. But also a lot of collaborations with the University of Maastricht, Hogeschool Zuid. And as architecture, of course, is very much outside. We also have a tendency to organize walks, excursions, and to trigger people by having walks, written out on our website.
Yeah, I mean, I think that fits perfectly with our podcast because as we were talking about before we started, we have been discussing buildings, specifically buildings, during the podcast throughout Maastricht. So I think you're the perfect fit.
Thank you. Let's see.
What kinds of things has Bureau Europa been able to do during COVID? Because I can imagine that might have changed things a little bit.
Of course, it's a drama to not having the opportunity to meet up or to have large audiences.
Yeah.
But last year we managed to be, I think flexibility is the key. So we were planning on a small exhibition of the Maastricht-based architect, worldwide known, I would say, Jo Koenen. And from a small exhibition, we turned it into a big exhibition with a huge success, actually, because he has a wonderful collection on his archive, and he built quite some buildings and developed city parts of Maastricht, like Ceramiek. You all know where Bonnefante is based. He was the main planner, and at a very young age, he invited really wonderful architects to come to Maastricht. So we did this exhibition, which was hugely successful, and we were sold out the whole time we could open. And of course, we try to organize things outside, so with walks and excursions. This is what we did. And I was very happy that we could host the students of the architecture faculty of Hogeschool Zuid, because they all could make small exhibitions in our place. Wow. And this was the way they could show the work to the outside. As the schools were closed, we could host others. And they used it in a wonderful way. It was really professional collaborations. And even in the end, I think it was in September, the architecture faculty said, can we also do the final exams? You know, like the official, how do you say, when you offer the examens, and then the parents were there. And this was really beautiful. They did it outside. And meanwhile, inside, they could see parts of their final works. Wow. So it was pretty festive, and I was very happy that we could offer this space to them. Right. So for me, it was a wonderful opportunity also to, as I was pretty new, I started in October 2019. The whole COVID situation made me look for solutions in the city. And this so in a kind of a pressure cooker, I found my way in Maastricht much more easy and much more quick than I would have in a normal situation, I think.
I suppose so too. It is, as there's this expression in Dutch that says, under pressure everything becomes liquefied, and that is, I think that is definitely a positive many of us have taken from this past year. We have just happily dove into things we never really would have considered before, and found all sorts of ways to connect and to inform and to educate and to entertain and to support each other. And that's wonderful with all the suffering and all the lack and all the disorientation going on as well. That's great. That's really great.
Yeah, and I was happy that there was some support. We could really continue and also offer the people who work with the Bureau Europa continue with their jobs. So that was good. But of course, it shows, I think for me, the main lesson also shows how much we depend on the public space and how we can use it much richer than we do if we are in a hurry and in a rush. And so we organize extra walks, but also for me personally, I really start to observe Maastricht much more intense than I would have done when everything was open. So of course I look at it at the bright side, but it brought some
there's all the other stuff
good ones. Yes.
And Floor, just a practical point, since quite a few of our listeners are not first in Dutch and are not going to be. Is all your information available in English as well?
Yes, most of our information is in English, or we have little synopsis from it. But we have a bilingual approach. Of course, also the region is bilingual, so we try to be in English as well. And our exhibition information is in English.
Bureau Europa has remained active and reaching out and making connections and providing programming. That's really great. Yeah.
And
very good.
I think one of our main topics of today is the new exhibition, which is Love in a Mist. Can you tell us, I suppose, how it came about and how it ended up in Maastricht?
Yes, the Love in a Mist exhibition is telling the story on fertility. And fertility, of course, is it's a known topic. But to me, it came from Makit Shoshan. She's an architect and she's teaching in Harvard on the architecture faculty. And when I started in Maastricht, and once she also collaborated in Maastricht, and she was living for a while in the Netherlands, so she knows a bit about the surroundings. She said to me, Floor, be aware, take your activism or be activist in your exhibition program. Which I thought was quite a nice suggestion, because it's a beautiful platform you have as a museum. And it's nice to show beautiful things, but it's also good to make us aware of society or what's really happening. And of course, in the past year, especially in the US, but if you notice also in the newspapers, you see that fertility, and especially a topic like abortion, is under pressure. And
this is more about controlling female fertility.
Indeed, and so Makit made an exhibition about it, and as she was quite keen on inviting Dutch artists, we talked about it, and I said, I'm quite interested to bring it to Maastricht once it's out there. So this is what happened, and I invited her. Of course, luckily we don't have a US situation where there's a heavy fight, a political fight. But also in the Netherlands, we have abortion rights. It's taken care of, but at the same time, there's still a lot of things to do. Yeah. And then the topic of Love in a Mist is broader than abortion rights. It looks at the whole cycles of fertility. And if you noticed and you look back to the past, you see already, of course, from the stories of the Bible, Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden with the apple, it's all about fertility. And in the Middle Ages, we can see how the women who from origin is in charge of the garden and knows a lot about the garden and the fertility of the earth has to make place for the men. And so the women are more into the houses, their knowledge is cut off. And currently, this cyclist we can see also happening in abortion rights. So abortion, for example, in the Netherlands, is the only medical task you have to think about for 5 days. So, which is pretty weird. Or another thing is, if it would happen to you that you are in need of an abortion, you have to go to a special clinic.
Yeah.
And for example, in Maastricht, that means that you have to go to Roermond, which takes an hour of transport. Then we have for 5 days thinking. Then you have to go back. If you're not registered, it costs you €500. And if you know that most of the women who are up for abortion are mothers alone, or a lot of women who have an abusive environment, it's pretty hard to see how they can go to a clinic in itself. Yeah. Instead of going to the family doctor, who might be just a few houses or a street block away. Yeah. So these are things which are pretty weird, that it's not taken care of, that you don't have access to your body, you cannot have control of your body in that pure physical sense. Whether you're Catholic or Christian or for other religion reasons you don't or do want to, it's not about this. This is just about how it's arranged. And in other countries, of course, Poland, but also in France, a lot of things are happening with this topic. And it's still weird that there's so much pressure on it. And this exhibition reveals a story about the past, but it's also looking at the work of women on ways. It's by Rebecca Gompert. Last year she was in the top 100 by the Times, chosen as one of the important people, because she makes us, not only the Netherlands, but worldwide aware of the right for abortion or for legal and safe abortion. But there's also the other story is that, of course, we want to be fertile, to have children and prolong our existence. And for that, of course, mankind also developed all kinds of hormones, like the DES hormone. And in the Netherlands, it ended up in a big drama. This was a hormone which was given to women who wanted to become pregnant. And this hormone, in the end, caused cancer in a very bad way by both women and their children. And this DES hormone is not only used for, well, of course, it stopped after this dramatic side effect, but it's also used in for animals and for growing crop. Because, of course, we're also longing for bigger animals and more crop, fertile earth. And if we look at it, so the exhibition also takes us from having these issues for women, takes us also how we treat earth and what's happening there. Then the next step, if you look in what we are all pushing in our chemicals for earth to be more fertile, we can also see how it really changed earth in the climate changes. And so in another part of the exhibition also is about earth and how we deal with it. A recommendation, for example, by United Nations to look much more to indigenous people because they're much more close to earth. And it's quite remarkable that they stated in, I think it's a report from 2019, to deal with climate change. They also say, please collaborate between the countries, but also much more listen to the indigenous because they're so much closer to nature and they have predicted this climate change and these big dramas for decades ago. Not only by seeing the melting water, but just they could feel it, they could see it in their little plants or in the behavior of animals. These topics in the exhibition we use a lot of works from several artists because of course the power of art is not make maybe reports but really express what's happening in nature or what kind of position we take. And I've also liked the idea, and this is also a way what art can do, is that we have, for example, an exhibition, an installation from Next Nature, which is the research group based in Eindhoven, from Koert van Mensvoort. And they took this liberty to have a design of wombs in huge balls, like skippy balls. They are hanging in our hallway. And it's suggested that these wombs would be outside the human body, growing babies. And Next Nature always takes the liberty to really design it as it is already possible.
Wow.
But of course, ethically, we don't do this, and we don't grow babies in an external womb. But it's possible.
Not yet.
Not yet. But of course, it's possible. And it's also a good discussion piece, because if you take away the weight of this, putting it in the woman's body, or that the man is not able to control it. If you take it outside, what would happen? I think it would be it's a good way of thinking about it, because it means it's a drastic change.
Potentially upsetting the entire power balance between the male and female.
Indeed, and I think that's what the exhibition is also about. But so it's not. It's addressing. It's also it triggers your curiosity. I think I like to. I hope people go home and think, indeed, interesting topic. Never thought about this.
Yes, exactly.
To make it bit more less theoretical, we also looked very much into the situation of women. So we focused on the women in Limburg, and I would say Limburg has quite some power women. Of course, what would happen if I told you before, like fertility made women also lose their some rights in the garden, or men were trying to overpower them. But of course, women found their way. And so cloisters, for example, are a very important institute in formatting women's structures, giving liberty to women to study, to organize.
We find that in many of our podcasts on the convents in the city, and that is both the older ones that to an extent did not survive being abolished at the French Revolution, but it definitely applies in full force to the women's convents of the 19th century, because they were explicitly intended to care for people and educate them. They were all about healthcare and education, and that must have made, it demonstrably changed the lives of women for the better immensely.
I also see it when so I talked quite a bit with people in Maastricht on the women's issue. So to call out one name, I would say Elisabeth Stroeve.
Yes.
She was living, now I have to be right, I think 16th, 17th century. But she took the initiative to develop a school. She was very religious, but she did not create a new monastery or convent, but she created this movement for education and healthcare, or take care of the poor people. Of course, she was quite successful, and she was quite unorthodox. She was also chased a bit, and people also sometimes consider her even as a witch. But she really managed to set up this movement and create a building, and was also really acknowledged already in that time for her work. Today, Elisabeth Stroeve is still a lot in Maastricht's society, I would say, also by the fund named after her. But we can also see, and this is being in the part of the Sphinx factory, this is also interesting. Around the 19th century, 20th century, the whole Sphinx factory, which was focused on glass or crystal and ceramics, was huge. The whole area around the student hotel was the Sphinx factories, one of the biggest factories in Europe. And both men, women, and unluckily also children were working there. But women were working there even if they would have been married and having children. Because they were poor, they were working there. They were not treated that well, and this created also this whole movement of social awareness and the awareness of having rights. So in this factory in Maastricht, it's really different how women were being more feminist, being more aware of their social conditions than, for example, the wives of the people working in the mines in Heerlen. Yeah. So it's really different in Maastricht. There's a special situation going on. And having this social movement, we can also see that the first women strikes are happening for the whole Netherlands in Maastricht. Wow. They were influenced by the Belgian people, but also this whole factory setting made, again, women more aware. And also we can see that the first female councillor in the Netherlands, a city councillor, is in Maastricht. It's Anne Wijnands Louis. She's what we call a factory baby. So she grew up in the factory, and of course, also there she was much more a fighter. She really had for the Social Democrats. She became a councillor. So this is very unique. Also in the background of this, more Catholic-based region of Limburg, of course, where the church was very much controlling the people. What they were voting, what they were doing.
This industrial layer in society also made for very early organizing and activism. The two went hand in hand.
Yeah.
At Meet Maastricht, we are spending Women's History Month publishing podcasts on wonderful women of Maastricht.
Oh, the posts on Facebook.
Oh, posts. I'm sorry, they're not posts. They're
Yes,
posts.
we have already done the women who are working in the Sphinx factories and the other factories, and there were some great photos of them with big piles of ceramics and packing things, and I think next we have Elizabeth Struve as well, so we're definitely perfect timing for this podcast.
Yeah. I think it's the stories of Maastricht are very rich in that sense that you can see the even also the grandmother of Joos Minnes. You just mentioned to me in a conversation that he's often a guest in the podcast.
Yes,
but his great grandmother was a lady who was working at one of the first female directors of the Natural History Museum in Maastricht.
Oh, wow.
And she was really fighting her way through the bureaucracy to get that position.
She is in one of the upcoming posts as well.
So I will. Make sure you come to the exhibition. You can see some of her personal belongings at Bureau Europa.
Right.
Yeah. And so this whole question about, or the quest maybe for fertility means it's good to keep an eye on, this is what is underlying this quest for fertility, maybe in the relations between mankind or relations mankind to Earth.
Yeah.
But if we look properly at the women in Maastricht or even in Limburg, it's very enriching. How it's not only said like they were put away or something. No, the people create a life, and it's quite nicely documented in certain ways. Yeah.
Yes, true, and it's also to me it is very much an ongoing power struggle. Down the centuries, and that might be not necessarily the women lusting after power in the public sense, but very simply often the first and most basic kind of power, and that is of self-determination, of autonomy over your own body to begin with, and by extension, maybe for your children and for your life in general, to just be free of ideologues of whatever kind, whether they are extractive liberals or neoliberals, or whether they are suppressive religious authorities, as is the rallying cry in abortion activism around the world. It's my body, my choice.
True.
Yeah, and I have been involved in international within the United Nations in negotiations. So that is with actors from the world over on the sort of language to be used in documents relating to the Women's Treaty, and it is forever. It is always and always and always the oppressive regimes that will not budge, that will insist on suppressing women, and it is just after all these years, I'm still shocked at that kind of hatred, of that kind of what can possibly be the motivation of wanting to
I think
shut
therefore
up half of humanity. Why?
But therefore, it's actually also for me, I must say, when I started to dive into the topic. And I've always thought, like the Dutch are quite privileged situation that we have it all under control, but it's not. And as Rebecca told me, like, Floor, it's so important to bring the stories to the people in simple words. So not make it only a feminist case for fighting, but it's really like it touches upon really basic arrangements you might think which are already there, but it's not. And I think also the idea of having an exhibition which talks to you in a friendly way, but takes you along with the meaning of fertility. And that is such an underlying emotion, maybe even, not only a necessary topic to know about, but also to understand what it all causes. And so I was very happy actually that the Dutch Parliament a few weeks ago, they voted to take away the 5 days time to think about abortion.
Wow.
We were very sorry to learn that Rebecca, her lawsuit against for the Dutch law to make it happen that your family doctor can provide abortion pills was not won. So the judge said, no, it's okay that we only have the clinic. And also on television is quite some, so that was a big loss, I think. But on television also there's attention for these pro-life organizations who are spreading false news on the net, on the internet. For example, if you're looking, what about an abortion? Like young girls are looking for it. You might be triggered by false information on websites which don't tell it's pro-life, but they just are having a cover-up and they say it's, like how unhealthy it is, or they just spread false information. That the public news is giving attention to these false news spreaders, it's good. But we have to be, I think it should be a topic which should be broader known than only the activist or feminist. To tell the stories that it's pretty nice to be aware of this. I think it might help.
Yes, absolutely. What I was wondering about, Floor, is I haven't seen the exhibition yet, and I'll be there as soon as I can. But I've been reading what you've put online about it. I was wondering how you managed to avoid the trap of this is a women's thing. All the males could think and just not show up. How do you address the male participation in the male gaze, the male responsibility, the feminist males?
I tried to, I was actually also a bit cautious in getting the exhibition purely about abortion. So I was really a bit thinking about this indeed. One way I tried to make it local was to, because I think a lot of people will not, that's about fertility, it's not me. So to make it about Limburg, I wanted to make it more local. Like people say, I'm interested because it's Limburg, because we have a lot of visitors, of course, locally. So that's one. And two, what I noticed in my observations, as we are on architecture, people would say, is this architecture? And it's not purely architecture, but architecture these days is also much more looking into the social context. Yeah. And social context makes us having not only monasteries, but social context also makes us having a separate clinic. And that's all architecture and the built environment. Of course, our built environment is not only drawn by the architects, but it's also shaped by human conditions. And so this is why fertility is also part of that, looking at built environment. But I also invited Merel Pitt. She's the main editor for The Architect. And she created this series of Mrs. Architect, which is about female architects. And this is what I looked around me, and a lot of male architects like it, that there's attention for the female architect. Because there are a lot of female architects, but often the men are on show. And this gesture by Merel Pitt was welcomed by many people. So having Mrs. Architect in the Mevrouw de Architect, a lecture series around this Love and the Mist exhibition, made an architect say, oh, that's nice, I will come to that. So this is how I try to combine. Or another guy was telling about Next Nature, and that's about technology, that's about future, a bit sci-fi. Yeah. And that's what I like, like the womb outside of the women. That's what I like. So I thought we make it a bit sci-fi, we make it a bit technology, we make it a bit about architecture. This will hopefully comfort men not to feel to look at it away from the topic.
Okay.
Yeah.
It sounds a little bit crazy to me to think that fertility is not a human issue.
Yes, exactly.
Rather than just women. Obviously, it takes two people to be fertile to make a baby.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm not walking away from it, but it is sad. But it's also for me. Also, in the beginning, I thought it's a very feminist, activist topic. Looking to much more deeply, I thought no, it's like one of the main conditions, human conditions. Yeah. But of course, yes, I think it will. I cannot take that away in one exhibition. So I kind of like it that we made it pink, like in a friendly pink. Let's see. I was also a bit disappointed when an elder guy came to me talking about lectures or something, and he said, "So what are you working on?" And I said, "Love and image, blah blah blah." And he said, "Oh, that my wife will like that." And I thought, "Oh yeah, that's a bit." And so of course I joked to him.
Oh.
You have to come as well. Yeah.
Yes.
But this is the situation, of course. Yeah.
But it's the easiest cop out of all to declare an entire field of research and the human experience it is based on by declaring it uninteresting because it's just for women. It's just, as Katrina is saying, anything connected to fertility involves a male and a female. So come on.
But I'm thinking, I think this might be too hard, this topic, but I think a lot of things can be done in communication. Giving examples, trying to turn it around, to look at approach it from another side. I hope with this. So this is the way we have to do it. But for now, I think for sure it will not. The men they might be interested in some artist.
Yeah, and it's great that you've had such a wide range of artists as well. I know that I'm just looking at the pictures and the video. There is a big range of mediums and different artists. So I'm sure there will be something to interest people. As you said, the more science fiction-y things, or I know there's digital and analog art. It seems like there's a really wide range.
I would also, of course, this is a collaboration with Harvard, but if I would reform it or form it otherwise, I might look for a title like Control the World in by Fertility, or like a really manly title, which might trigger like a Star Wars kind of thing, like, oh yeah, that's why I want to know about this, and then see, oh my God, it's about fertility. But to trap men a bit with it, we could have done that.
Because the title that is being used at the moment is a plant.
Yeah, it's a plant, and this is also how we start the exhibition with a beautiful graphic, detailed hallway. Graphically made by the design is made by Sandra Kassenaar. She has drawn a few plants which are all about controlling fertility. And Love and Miss is a beautiful myth about it's a little plant with a beautiful flower. And one of the myths is that it was used, women would use it to grow, and they would grow it, and if a man would approach and he would see the beautiful flowers, he would be caught by the flowers instead of looking at the woman. And so that is the way how women could escape a man. But it was also used for abortion. But it's not really proven. The other plants are much better for this. But so in the hallway we start with this kind of old knowledge for plants. Yeah.
I didn't recognize it as a plant name at all. Thought it was a very poetic title for an exhibition.
In the Dutch it says juffertje in het groen.
Yeah.
But
that I recognized, of course.
No, but Love and Image is a beautiful name indeed.
Yes, lovely. Sounds like a poem.
And Floor, was there a piece in the exhibition that really spoke to you, or that you really like, that you'd like to talk about?
No, I like a lot of the works. I like the Desiree Doron made really beautiful nature works. Actually, what I really like is the work, but I like them in general next nature because they make things visible which are about to happen. And make you think about it. We only show a little bit of this story. This is the Ladies of Thorn, of the Prinsessen of Thorn, which is a small community near Maastricht in the now village or city of Thorn, which used to be a total elite place for the elite of Europe for ladies. Who could only enter the stift, which is the organization form of not being in a monastery but very religious, but open. So you didn't not become a nun, but you would sign up, and you had to prove that you were very noble by showing your family tree, that you for many generations would be noble. And this form was also a way of so the rich people could also buy their freedom. Like as a woman was not married, you could go there and live quite a good life. Yeah. And I liked that we were looking for. I once saw one of the family trees in the Maastricht archive. So I really like to have the original in the exhibition. And then we were asking for it around, and we noticed that there's so much attention for it. So in the fall, in the Limburg Museum, they will have a full exhibition on this topic. So it's quite nice because that's also a very pleasing way. Like, oh, that's the elite, but also so close to Maastricht. It's very powerful, actually, that there are all these conglomerates working on education and creating forms of living. Yeah, I kind of liked it. Yeah.
We came across quite a few manifestations of this kind of living arrangements for women when talking about the different places in Maastricht as well. We tend to not realize this, but the beguinage, so the places that were made for beguines and things like the St. Martin's Court, which was very decidedly not religious and still isn't after all these centuries. But also women's convents in all sorts of ways provided safe places for independent women, and you would have to subscribe to more or fewer rules. Of course, the ladies of the stift were free to live their very luxurious lifestyle in Thorn, but that was the high nobility of all of Europe. But this type of freedom was available to women of all levels in society for quite a long time. So that's it seems to me that a lot of the oppressive forms of women having to be just wives and mothers a lot of that seems to date from the 19th and 20th century. So come on, we should be able to get rid of that.
Yeah, true. Well, I think if you look closely to the whole Sphinx situation, it's really tough how people were treated there. That the life they were living in the factories and pretty tough conditions. I actually really love the beautiful photos from the Sphinx people. And we have them also. I've put 2 posters now in our windows on the outside. And there's so much more. And then, and I really like that collaboration we have with the archive because it's so rich. They have so beautiful material of Maastricht. It's really nice to look into it. And I must say, this is one thing. I'm by origin a historian, and I really love it how Maastricht is diving into its history. There's such you're working on it and with it, but there's so many people interested in Maastricht, and it's really lived by the inhabitants, which is a kind of a joy. So there's a lot of stories to tell, and of course I find it very important also to look into the future and into innovations. But it's nice to link both to each other, the past with the future, and to take it along.
And also to the thing you mentioned just before. Linking the people to their heritage, and that's definitely something you are doing. And that's also definitely something Meet Maastricht is trying to do.
Yeah.
Because it is, it just adds depth to your experiences. It just provides you with more of a sense of belonging, of knowing your way about, of realizing why things are the way they are, whether you want to change them or not. I think that's the main thing, really, that it provides a sense of belonging when you know more than just where the supermarket is. And
True.
Yeah.
True. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And so I think before we wrap up, do you have the practical information for people?
Oh, yeah.
When things are happening and how we get there, and I don't know if there's a ticket price or anything like that you wanted to share.
Yeah, so for now, of course, due to the COVID, we are closed. But as soon as possible, we will open. Then I assume the reservation system still has to be used. So you can reserve your tickets online. For the lectures, you can also reserve your tickets online. We will work with Rebecca having a lecture with the Studium Generale of the University of Maastricht. And this is all mentioned on our website or newsletter. You can sign up on our website, Bureau Europa. Google for Bureau Europa and you will find it. And we will have excursions coming up. And of course, already there's some of the trips are online. What I also like to, because this is what I changed a bit in our positioning, not only as a museum having exhibitions, but I really want to have the dialogue with the city. So therefore, I weekly walk with people from Maastricht. People can sign up if they're from Maastricht and want to show their part of the city to me. That's and then we make an appointment for like 1 hour, 2 hour walk. This is what I do. But I also like to invite people if they say, can I do a lecture at your place or can we do something? Because Bureau Europa is a beautiful institute. It's a beautiful place. I also like it to be used by many people. So I already invited a lot of students to work with us. But if you have an idea or a plan or you want to show something, maybe even in our étalages or in windows, reach out to us and we're very open for collaborations.
Great.
Yeah.
So this is what I wanted to say, yes.
Very exciting.
And we have museum tickets. Our price is very modest, I would say, for €5.
Yeah.
You can enter, and I think the first bit of the hallway you can already enter, and only above you can decide if you want to buy the ticket, because the first introduction we give to you. Yeah.
And is that part of the museum card as well?
It's part of the museum card as well.
Okay, nice.
And
Yeah. And the exhibition, the Love in a Mist.
It will run till the 15th of August.
Yes.
And meanwhile, we have like the lecture series on Mevrouw de Architect. Those will be in Dutch, I think. But it's still nice. And we have also other exhibitions coming up, little pop-up exhibitions.
Oh, nice.
That's what we will do for the summer. And we will have an educational kit for young children. So people are welcome.
Great.
Yeah, thank you so much for talking to us. We are very grateful for you coming and talking about Love in a Mist. We really hope we get to be there in person and we get to visit, because it would be great to visit an exhibition. It seems like so long since we've been able to do that.
Wonderful. I'm very happy with your initiative of Meet Maastricht, because I think it's important to connect. I wish you luck, and please call me anytime if you want other topics to discuss.
Yeah.
Good,
For
we
sure.
will.
Thank you so much for listening to the Meet Maastricht podcast. To keep up to date with all our content and events, make sure to follow us on social media. You can find us on Instagram at Meet Maastricht and on Facebook at Come Meet Maastricht. If you love our podcast and would like to see some amazing archival images as you listen, don't forget to subscribe to the Meet Maastricht YouTube channel. If you love what we do and would like to support the Meet Maastricht team, you can also donate through PayPal via our website meetmaastricht.eu. Meet Maastricht is definitely a labour of love, and all of the revenue we make through our tours and events currently goes towards administration costs. With your help, we would love to be able to give back a little something to the team so we can all keep bringing you our favourite stories and showing you our favourite places in Maastricht. Thanks again, and tune in next time to learn more about our beautiful city.
Tot ziens.